Genshin Impact was one of the greatest surprises of 2020. It's not often that a free-to-play game comes along with the same depth and rewarding gameplay as a full-blown release. It's all set in the fantasy world of Teyvat that is made up of 7 different nations and sees you taking on the part of one of 4 characters that can all be switched between on the fly as you explore the world to ultimately track down your sibling who is separated from you right at the beginning of the adventure. One of the most compelling aspects of Genshin Impact is the gameplay. It puts a huge emphasis upon the various elemental types that make up the world. Each character specializes in one of these elements and can drastically affect the outcome of each encounter. For example, if the enemy is carrying a wooden shield, the use of fire can burn it away and leave them open to attack. It's a really neat system. You'll soon find yourself switching between your various characters as you adapt to everything the game throws at you. Of course, throughout the duration of the adventure, you'll also be leveling up and learning new skills as well as acquiring new items and equipment that all complement this aspect of the gameplay. With it being free to play and available on a whole range of systems including mobile, there is absolutely no excuse to not give Genshin Impact a go. Tales of Vesperia has to be one of the finest entries in the long-running series. It sees you assuming the role of a young man named Yuri, who initially sets out to restore the energy source that supports his village, but he soon gets entangled into a tale that involves the fate of the entire kingdom. Along the way, you'll meet a lovable cast of characters, as well as vibrant and unique locations that all manage to bring the world to life in a truly captivating way. Gameplay-wise, you'll find yourself taking on side quests from the various NPCs that litter the environments, as well as concentrating on the main narrative. The combat system plays out in real time, and this is where Tales of Vesperia really comes into its own. It sees you having complete control of one character, whilst the party members are handled by the AI. Their actions can be completely customized from a set of skills that all affect their performance on the field. Experimenting and finding out which options work best is half of the fun, and with some time you'll soon be slaughtering enemies in style. As the player, you have several types of attack at your disposal, from standard strikes to devastating abilities that can all be linked together to form combos. This is the basis of the system, and the more that you land hits will build something known as the over limit meter that allows you to cast special arts and perform attacks without any cooldown periods. Keeping up the momentum and constantly staying active during battle is the best way to play and will no doubt result in victory time and time again. If you're a fan of the series or the genre as a whole, Tales of Vesperia definitely deserves your time. The first thing to wrap your head around when it comes to Nioh is the insane amount of difficulty present within the game. Often referred to as Team Ninja's take on the Souls series, it's an experience that is not going to hold your hand, but if you take the time to get to grips with its rather intricate and unique aspects, it soon becomes one of the most rewarding games available on the PS4. It all takes place in Japan during the 1600s. You play as William, a sailor who travels to Japan to locate a target that has captured something important to him. As far as gameplay goes, it sees you exploring the land and taking on a diverse range of enemies which all pose their own unique threat. There are 6 different regions in total that all offer a selection of missions to complete that will net you experience points, currency and new gear. The combat is really fast paced and takes advantage of 5 different weapons that you can choose from. Each of them provide a different style and way to interact with each enemy, and mixing them together soon becomes the best way to progress. Relying on all of these aspects during battle is key to your success, and once you've mastered them all, you'll be able to take on any threat that comes your way. Now visually, Nioh is stunning. The constant feeling of dread seeps into each environment and provides an atmosphere that will immerse you totally within its world. With its rewarding gameplay, replay value and stunning presentation, there is no doubt in my mind that Nioh will not disappoint those who have yet to try it out. Nier Automata sees the player taking on the role of an android known as 2B. It takes place thousands of years after the events of the first game and all revolves around a war between the human-produced androids and a series of machines from another world. Now what truly steals the show is the gameplay. The combat system is presented in a sort of hack and slash style that grants the player a whole host of skills to take advantage of. You have a light and heavy attack as well as evasive techniques and parries that make the simple encounters a lot more engaging. There are 4 different types of weapons on offer as well, such as long and short swords to braces and spears, that each bring their own advantages and disadvantages to the fight. All of them can be charged or launched before executing an attack, and figuring out how to chain all of the options together sees the combat system shine. Also joining you in the fight is a small robot companion that constantly stays by your side throughout the game. The best thing about it is that it can be fully customized and tailored to your specific style of play. It will no doubt help you get out of some tricky situations across the adventure. Now, one of the best aspects of Nier Automata as well has to be the sheer diversity in its gameplay. At heart, it's an action RPG, but you'll often find yourself partaking in a wide range of genres, from shoot-em-up sections to basic text adventure segments. The game constantly presents new ways to interact with it. If you still haven't experienced this one for yourself, I highly recommend that you do. The Monster Hunter series has to be one of the most prolific and worthwhile action RPGs out there. It started life on the PlayStation 2 and has continued to evolve over the course of its legacy. Now, World makes several changes to the usual formula in an attempt to streamline many aspects of the experience. You take up the job of a hunter who is part of a research commission sent to investigate something known as the Elder Crossing. The narrative manages to immerse you in your role and brings a level of intrigue to each and every environment you'll be visiting. Once in combat, the game really begins to stand out. There are up to 14 different weapon types that all bring their own application to each encounter. From range-based weapons to up-close and personal attacks, there is plenty on offer that is bound to satisfy players of all kinds. Matching the sheer amount of tools at your disposal is the amount of armor and items that can also be acquired. Most armor offers new and exciting skills that can be earned and nurtured over the course of the adventure, and makes finding new types all the more rewarding. If you've never managed to get into the series up until this point, Monster Hunter World provides the perfect jumping on point and is bound to satisfy both fans of the genre and newcomers alike. Ys 8 is quite possibly one of the best RPGs that Falcom have ever produced. Don't let the number in the title turn you off, as it can be fully enjoyed without any previous knowledge of the series, as it provides a completely self-contained story for players to enjoy. You take on the role of a young man named Adol, as you look for a way to escape an island you find yourself stranded on after an attack upon your ship. You'll be finding characters along the way and recruiting them to your cause, but I won't go too much into the narrative of Ys 8, as in my opinion it is one of the finest facets of the entire adventure, and it really does a good job of staying serious whilst having the confidence to play around with the world in which it is set. On the gameplay front, Ys 8 is spectacular, mainly because of the combat system that affords the player an immense amount of options. You'll find yourself utilising a wide range of weapon skills that can all be upgraded over the course of the adventure, allowing you to unlock further abilities that do a good job in making each character feel unique. As you would expect, there is also a modest amount of items, equipment and armour that further the capabilities of your characters and can have the potential to unlock further opportunities during battle. As I mentioned, Ys 8 has to be one of the best entries in the series to date, so if you're a fan of the genre, this one is a no-brainer. Bloodborne offers one of the most satisfying but at the same time frustrating and soul-destroying experiences. It shares many similarities with the likes of Dark Souls, with the player being tasked with making their way through a dark and decaying world, which is inhabited by a wide range of terrifying monsters which will do nothing but to try and stop you dead in your tracks. The combat requires the player to think on their toes, with the onslaught of attacks aimed towards them being quite relentless in nature, but with each death it will only spur you on to get better and understand the various mechanics that are in place. You have the ability to carry several weapons at any one time, which really opens up all types of differing playstyles and strategies when encountering enemies. If the action ever gets too much though, players can retreat to an area known as the Hunter's Dream, which facilitates many different aspects of the game, such as leveling up your weapons and armor, or buying clothing and items that will aid you out in the field. But there is a catch, as when travelling to this area, any enemies that you have taken out will respawn upon your return. It manages to create a rather interesting gameplay loop that is bound to keep you engaged. As mentioned, Bloodborne can be quite rough, but for those that are willing to stick with it, you'll find one of the best games on the PlayStation 4 waiting for you. Developed by Guerrilla Games, most commonly known for the first-person shooting franchise Killzone, comes an entirely new adventure that sees the player taking up the role of a young woman known as Aloy. Set in a post-apocalyptic world ruled by robotic creatures, Aloy sets out on an adventure to unravel the many mysteries behind the strange place to ultimately find her place within it. It's essentially an open-world action RPG, with a diverse set of various locales such as jungles, deserts and snowy mountaintops to explore. But the real star of the show has to be the combat, and the way in which each robotic enemy poses their own unique threat. It forces the player to adapt on the fly. There are many weapons which are afforded to you, from bows and arrows to makeshift machine guns and traps. There's always plenty of options at your fingertips. Now the main journey will last players quite some time, due to its generous amount of content as well as optional activities that help pad out the overall experience, but in a meaningful way. Nothing ever feels forced in. Each main or side quest feels completely natural and will help draw the player in. If you still haven't got round to playing this modern classic, now would be the perfect time to jump in. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is an action role-playing game that presents the player with an incredible world to explore. Only matching the sheer size of the kingdom is the range of activities in which to undertake. Most of the missions are highly relevant to the overall narrative, whilst others serve more as side activities, but they all still manage to feel integral to the overall experience. Players assume the role of Geralt, who is tasked with tracking down his adopted daughter from the clutches of an otherworldly force known as the Wild Hunt. Throughout the journey, you will come to possess a generous amount of weapons, magical abilities and skills that can all be leveled up through the intricate skill tree system. It really allows players to experiment and ultimately craft a character that caters to their own specific style. From standard melee attacks, a handy dodge mechanic and spells, there is plenty to get used to and utilise within each battle, and with control being tight and responsive, it only further enhances the overall feel of each encounter, and never sees defeat being the fault of poor design, rather just the player's lack of skill. Don't let the number in the title put you off, it's the perfect jumping on point for the series, so if you're looking for an immersive action RPG to lose yourself in, The Witcher 3 has got you covered. The Final Fantasy VII Remake finally landed in 2020 after a somewhat agonising wait. It brings the classic adventure soaring into the modern era and manages to capture, if not surpass in some ways, the essence of the original journey many fans hold so close to their hearts. Now the remake is broken up into several parts, with this release essentially covering the Midgar section of the game, which sees the player taking up the role of Cloud and a band of like-minded individuals who are set on bringing down a shady corporation known as Shinra. Much has changed in the several years since the original's release. Each environment can now be fully explored and appreciated thanks to the incredible visuals and design that let each location shine. The combat has been revamped and is now presented as a sort of hybrid system that sees real-time combat blended with the style of old, that allows the player to pause the action mid-fight and select a whole range of magical abilities and special skills that can all be upgraded over the course of the adventure. For those that never played it back in the day, or players who are simply jumping back in, this is one of the perfect ways to experience this timeless adventure. Well, that does it for the video. Don't forget to hit subscribe to stay up to date on any future videos, and as always, thanks for taking the time to watch. I'll catch you next time.